The manila envelope sat on my lap during the entire 2-hour drive to my grandmother's house. Inside were the property documents, the deed, the title transfer, the notarized will excerpt, everything proving that the modest 3-bedroom house on Maple Street now belonged to me. My Uncle David had been living there for 6 years. He moved in when Grandma got sick, supposedly to care for her. After she passed last October, he just stayed. The family assumed he'd inherited the place. He certainly acted like he owned it, renovating the kitchen, replacing the fence, hosting Thanksgiving dinner there. I never corrected anyone. What was the point? The probate attorney had been clear. Grandma left the house to me, her only grandchild. Uncle David received cash assets and her car. Fair distribution, the lawyer said. David got liquidity. I got property I couldn't afford to maintain. When I pulled into the driveway, 5 cars already crowded the street. Through the front window, I could see my Aunt Maria gesturing animatedly. My cousin's kids ran through the living room. This wasn't going to be a private conversation. David opened the door before I could knock. Finally, everyone's been waiting. The living room fell silent when I entered. 12 family members occupied every seat. Standing room only along the walls. My father sat in Grandma's old recliner, arms crossed. Aunt Maria perched on the sofa arm, lips pursed. We need to discuss the house situation, David announced, closing the door behind me. I've been carrying all the expenses, property taxes, utilities, maintenance. It's not sustainable. I sat in the only empty chair, placing the envelope on my lap. Okay, Maria leaned forward. That's all you have to say. David has been paying for everything while you, she waved her hand vaguely, do whatever it is you do. I worked as a data analyst for a small firm, modest salary, nothing impressive. The family had always viewed my career as disappointing compared to David's construction business or my cousin's medical sales job. The solution is simple, David continued. He pulled out a folder from the side table. I've had papers drawn up. You sign over the property to me. I refinance and pay you $20,000. Clean, simple, $20,000. The house was worth at least $380,000, according to the county assessor. I need to think about it, I said quietly. David's jaw tightened. Think about what? I've been living here, maintaining it, paying for it. Possession is 9/10 of the law. That's not actually how property law works, I said. My father shifted in the recliner. Don't be difficult. David's making a generous offer. You couldn't afford this place anyway. Aunt Maria nodded vigorously. The property taxes alone are $8,000 a year. When have you ever had $8,000 at once? The envelope felt heavy on my lap. Inside was documentation showing I'd already paid this year's property taxes. 3 months ago directly to the county. The moment probate closed. I just need time to consider, I repeated. David's face reddened. Consider what? You think you have options here. You think you can just take this house. It's not about taking. I've put $60,000 into this place. His voice rose. New roof, kitchen renovation, HVAC system. You think you're entitled to that. Actually, the probate attorney had been clear about that too. Improvements made by someone without ownership claim weren't recoverable if done without permission. David had never asked, just assumed. Maybe we should all take a break, I suggested, standing. David moved to block the door. You're not leaving until this is settled. The room went very quiet. My cousin pulled her children closer. David, my father said slowly. Let's stay calm. Calm. I've been calm for 6 months. David's hands clenched into fists. 6 months of waiting for probate. 6 months of uncertainty. I'm done being calm. I tried to step around him. He grabbed my arm, fingers digging into my bicep. Sign the papers. Let go of me. Sign them. His other hand shot out, gripping the envelope. We struggled briefly. My hands trying to protect the documents, his trying to wrench them away. The envelope tore. Papers scattered across the floor. Aunt Maria gasped. My father stood up from the recliner. David's eyes locked on the deed. His name wasn't on it, only mine. What is this? He snatched the paper from the floor. Read it again. His face went from red to purple. This is wrong. This is a mistake. Grandma's will was very specific, I said quietly. No. He shook his head violently. No, I was here. I took care of her. I earned this house. The will, screw the will. He crumpled the deed in his fist. I'm not leaving. You can't make me leave. I bent down to gather the other documents, tax receipts, title insurance, the attorney's letter explaining my full legal ownership. David saw them too. Understanding dawned. I hadn't just inherited. I'd already taken possession, already paid taxes, already established legal ownership. You sneaky little. His hand grabbed my collar, yanking me upright. You were planning this, coming here to kick me out. I came to talk. My voice stayed level, despite my racing heart, to figure out arrangements. Arrangements. He shook me hard enough that my teeth rattled. The arrangement is you sign over this house. David, stop. Maria moved toward us. He ignored her. Both hands went to my throat. It happened faster than I could process. His thumbs pressed against my windpipe. My hands clawed at his wrists. The room tilted. Voices shouted. My father, Maria, someone else. But they sounded far away. Underwater. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The pressure increased. The room went dark. I woke to a plastic oxygen mask and fluorescent lights. My throat felt like I'd swallowed glass. A paramedic leaned over me, checking my pupils with a pen light. Stay still. You're okay. Can you tell me your name? I tried to speak. Only a rasp came out. Don't talk yet. Your throat's going to be sore for a while. The paramedic, young guy, probably mid-20s, adjusted something on the gurney. Can you nod if you understand me? I nodded. Good. You were unconscious for about 90 seconds. Your neighbor called 911. We've got you stabilized. Through the open front door, I could see the neighbor, Mrs. Patterson from 2 houses down, talking to a police officer. Beyond her, David sat on the front steps, hands behind his back, handcuffed. The second paramedic appeared. Older woman with kind eyes. She carried a tablet. We need to document your injuries for the report. Is that okay? Another nod. She photographed my neck from multiple angles. Even without a mirror, I could feel the swelling, the tenderness. Her partner made notes on his tablet, speaking clearly. Patient presents with bilateral neck contusions consistent with manual strangulation. Petechial hemorrhaging visible in both eyes. Victim reports loss of consciousness, lasting approximately 90 seconds per witness statements. The police officer approached. I need to get your statement when you're able. The older paramedic shook her head. Hospital first. She needs a full examination. Strangulation can cause delayed complications. As they loaded me into the ambulance, I saw my father standing in the doorway. He looked old suddenly, confused. Aunt Maria sat on the porch, crying. The ambulance doors closed. At the hospital, a nurse practitioner examined my throat, ordered x-rays to check for fractures, documented everything with clinical precision. A victim advocate appeared, explaining options for protective orders and criminal charges. The paramedic's body cam footage is already with the police, she said gently. It clearly shows the assault. The prosecutor will likely file charges regardless of whether you cooperate, but your testimony will strengthen the case. I still couldn't speak properly. I wrote on the notepad she provided. I just wanted to talk about the house. She read it, expression sympathetic. Property disputes escalate quickly. You did nothing wrong. A detective arrived around 8 p.m. He pulled up a chair beside the hospital bed, opened his laptop. I've reviewed the body cam footage from the paramedics, he said. Pretty clear-cut case of assault and battery. Given the strangulation and loss of consciousness, the DA is filing felony charges. Aggravated assault at minimum. He showed me still frames from the footage. David's hands around my throat, my face turning purple, his expression pure rage. The scattered legal documents on the floor. There's also the matter of the property, the detective continued. Your uncle claims he owns the house, but these documents tell a different story. I pointed to the deed in one of the photographs. Right, so we've got assault during the commission of fraud, possibly attempted theft by coercion. The DA's office is interested. He closed the laptop. This is going to go through multiple courts. Criminal charges for the assault, civil court for the property dispute, family court if there are restraining orders. This body cam footage is going to be seen by a lot of judges. I wrote, how many? He considered. Criminal arraignment judge, trial judge if it goes that far, probably an appellate judge when he appeals, civil court judge for your property claim, family court for protective orders, maybe a probate judge to confirm the will, housing court if you need to evict others from the property. Could be 8-9 different judges seeing this footage before everything's settled. 9 judges, all reviewing the same 2 minutes of body cam footage. My uncle's hands around my throat, the crumpled deed on the floor. The detective stood. Get some rest. Someone from the DA's office will contact you tomorrow. They kept me overnight for observation. Strangulation victims can develop complications, brain swelling, blood clots, delayed airway obstruction. I slept in fragments, waking every time a nurse checked my vitals. In the morning my phone had 63 missed calls. Messages from family members ranged from concerned to accusatory. Aunt Maria, how could you have David arrested? My cousin, he was just upset, you didn't need to involve police. One message from my father, we need to talk about what happens next. The victim advocate returned with coffee and paperwork. The arraignment is this afternoon. The prosecutor wants to meet with you first. The prosecutor was a tired-looking woman in her 40s, who spread crime scene photos across the conference table, the living room, the scattered documents, close-ups of my neck injuries. Your uncle's attorney is pushing for a plea deal, she said. Assault and battery, probation, anger management classes. I'm recommending against it. Why? My voice was returning though it hurt to speak. Because this wasn't a momentary loss of control. He assaulted you to steal property worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. The body cam shows premeditation. He was trying to force you to sign documents. This is felony territory. She pulled up the body cam footage on her laptop. I watched myself struggle, go limp, collapse. Watched David hold on for 3 seconds after I stopped fighting. Watched my father finally pull him away. Aggravated assault, attempted coercion, fraud. We're filing all of it. She closed the laptop. This footage is going to the arraignment judge this afternoon, then to discovery. Your civil attorney will use it. If there's an appeal, those judges will see it. Every court involved in this case, and there will be several, gets this evidence. How long will this take? Months, maybe years if he fights it. She gathered the photos, but with evidence this clear, he's not walking away. The arraignment was brief. David appeared via video from county jail, wearing an orange jumpsuit. The judge, stern woman in her 60s, reviewed the charges, watched a clip of the body cam footage, and set bail at $50,000. David's attorney objected. The judge interrupted. Counselor, your client is on video, committing felonious assault during an attempted property fraud. He's lucky I'm granting bail at all. Bail was posted by that evening. Uncle David was released with conditions: no contact with me, GPS monitoring, surrender of passport. The next week, my attorney filed a civil suit, ejection from the property, damages for the assault, recovery of court costs. We attached the body cam footage as evidence. 2 weeks later, I filed for a restraining order in family court. The judge, different from the criminal judge, watched the footage, granted a 3-year order without hesitation. The eviction hearing happened in housing court. David's attorney argued he'd made improvements, deserved compensation. My attorney played the body cam footage. The housing judge ruled in my favor. 30 days to vacate. Each court appearance meant another judge watching the same footage. Criminal court judge for the preliminary hearing. Civil court judge for the property dispute. The appellate judge when David's attorney filed appeals. By November, 9 different judges had reviewed that body cam footage. 9 different courts were processing some aspect of the case. The criminal trial was scheduled for February. David's attorney made one final plea offer: guilty to simple assault, drop everything else, suspended sentence. The prosecutor called me. Your decision, but I think we can win at trial. I thought about Grandma, about her carefully written will, about David's assumption that he deserved the house more than I did. No deal, I said. My phone buzzed. Text from my father. Your uncle wants to talk. Just family. No lawyers. I deleted it. Another text, this time from David's number. I'll give you the house. Just drop the charges. I forwarded it to my attorney and the detective. Witness tampering. Another charge. The house sat empty now. David's belongings in storage. Utilities in my name. New locks installed. I drove past it sometimes. This property that had cost me so much. But when I touched my throat, felt the fading bruises, I knew something else. The body cam hadn't just reached 9 judges. It had reached the one person who mattered most. Me. And I finally understood what Grandma had known when she wrote that will. Not that I needed the house, but that I deserved it. The parking lot of my mother's house was full when I arrived for the first estate inventory meeting since her funeral 3 weeks ago. I'd been dreading this, not the paperwork. I'd handled dozens of estates in my 8 years as a family court magistrate, but this was my mother's estate, and I was the executor she'd chosen. The probate court had confirmed my appointment last Tuesday. My Uncle Frank's truck blocked the driveway. I parked on the street and grabbed my briefcase with the inventory documents. Finally, Frank's voice came from behind me. He'd been waiting near the mailbox, arms crossed. At 63, he still had the imposing build of the construction foreman he'd been for 40 years. I'm taking over as executor. You're too young for this responsibility. Mom chose me, I said simply. The court confirmed it. The meeting starts in 10 minutes. She wasn't thinking clearly when she made that decision. You manipulated her while she was sick. She wrote her will 5 years ago when she was perfectly healthy. She updated it 2 years ago to confirm everything. Because you convinced her to cut everyone else out. His voice was rising. You always were her favorite. Nobody was cut out. The will is fair. You're getting exactly what Mom specified. Cousins had come outside, drawn by Frank's volume. Jennifer, Frank's daughter, stood on the porch with my Aunt Patricia. Nobody spoke. I'm the oldest. Frank said. I should be handling this. Not some 34-year-old who's never managed anything more complicated than filing papers at the courthouse. I let that pass. My family didn't know I was a magistrate. They knew I worked at the county courthouse, and I'd never bothered to correct their assumption that I was an administrative assistant or clerk. It was easier that way. Family gatherings stayed simpler when I wasn't fielding questions about legal cases. The probate court disagrees. I'm the executor. If you have concerns, file a formal objection with the court. I already did. Judge Morrison denied it. Of course she had. Judge Morrison was one of my colleagues. She'd reviewed Frank's objection personally, seen it had no legal merit, and denied it the same day. Then this conversation is over. I moved toward the house. Frank grabbed my arm, his grip tight. You're not going in there. I'm taking over this estate, one way or another. Let go of me. Not until you agree to step down. You can tell everyone you don't have time for this. I'll take over. Everything will be handled the right way. I pulled my arm free. I'm not stepping down. Move aside. What happened next occurred in less than 3 seconds. But I remember every detail with perfect clarity. Frank moved to my car and grabbed my right hand. My dominant hand positioning it deliberately on the edge of the car door frame. You'll step down, he said, his face inches from mine. Or you'll learn what happens when you disrespect your elders. I had just enough time to understand what he was about to do before he slammed the car door with full force. The sound was unmistakable. Bones breaking, not just one crack but multiple sharp snaps, like dry branches being stepped on. Everyone on the porch heard it clearly. The pain didn't register immediately. First came the shock, the surreal understanding that this was actually happening. That Frank had actually done this. Then the pain hit like white fire. My wrist was still caught in the door, Frank's hand keeping the door pressed shut, and every nerve was screaming. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think beyond the agony radiating up my arm. Step down, Frank repeated, his voice eerily calm. Or I'll break the other one too. I looked at the porch through a haze of pain. Jennifer had both hands over her mouth, her eyes wide. Patricia was frozen in place. My cousin David had his phone out but wasn't dialing. They were all just standing there, watching this happen. Frank released the door pressure slightly. My hand slid free. It didn't look like a hand anymore. My wrist was bent at an angle that wasn't anatomically possible. Already swelling rapidly. The skin already turning dark purple. You're insane, I whispered through gritted teeth. I'm determined. There's a difference. He stepped back. Tell everyone inside that you're resigning as executor, effective immediately. I'll take it from here. I cradled my destroyed wrist against my chest, trying not to move it. Jennifer, I called out, my voice shaking. Call 911. Don't you dare, Frank said sharply to his daughter. Nobody moved. They were all frozen, caught between helping me and defying Frank. I pulled out my own phone with my left hand, the motion making my right wrist shift. The pain nearly made me black out. I managed to dial 911 with shaking fingers. I need an ambulance, I said when the operator answered. My uncle just deliberately broke my wrist with a car door. Multiple fractures. I need police and paramedics immediately. I gave the address. The operator stayed on the line, asking questions I could barely focus on answering. Frank was already walking toward his truck, clearly confident he'd made his point. "This isn't over," he called back. "You'll step down, or next time it'll be worse." The paramedics arrived 14 minutes later. By then I was sitting on the curb, my wrist supported by a makeshift sling Jennifer had finally worked up the courage to help me create. The swelling had gotten dramatically worse. I couldn't feel my fingers anymore, which the rational part of my brain knew was a very bad sign. "Did someone deliberately do this to you?" the lead paramedic asked, examining my wrist carefully without touching it. "My uncle." He slammed my hand in the car door with full force because I wouldn't resign as executor of my mother's estate. The paramedic's expression hardened. "Did anyone witness this?" "7 family members. They're all inside now." 2 police officers had arrived with the ambulance. One of them, Officer Martinez, was already talking to the family members on the porch. The other, Officer Park, approached me with a notebook. "Can you describe exactly what happened?" I told her everything. The confrontation Frank's demands. How he'd positioned my hand deliberately and slammed the door. She photographed my wrist from multiple angles, took photos of the car door, documented the entire scene. Officer Martinez came over after finishing with the witnesses. "Everyone's telling the same story," he said grimly. "Your Uncle Frank deliberately trapped your hand in the door frame and slammed it with force. Multiple witnesses confirm he threatened you both before and after the assault. We've issued a warrant for his arrest." At the hospital they gave me morphine for the pain, which helped but didn't eliminate the throbbing agony. The ER doctor, Dr. Patel, ordered X-rays immediately. When he returned with the images on a tablet, his expression was grim. "You have a severely comminuted fracture of the scaphoid bone. That means it's broken into multiple pieces, plus fractures of the lunate and triquetrum bones, and what looks like significant damage to multiple ligaments. This is going to require surgery. An orthopedic specialist is already on the way." "Will I regain full function?" "That depends on how well the surgery goes, and how you heal. Wrist injuries like this are extremely complex. Best case scenario, you'll need 6 months of recovery with intensive physical therapy. Worst case, you may have permanent reduced mobility and chronic pain for the rest of your life." I closed my eyes. I was right-handed. Everything I did, writing judicial orders, typing rulings, signing legal documents, required that hand. My entire career depended on it. "I need to call my office," I said. "In a moment. First I have to complete your intake paperwork." He paused. "The police report indicates this was a deliberate assault, which I'm legally obligated to report through our medical system. Can you confirm your occupation for the official record?" "Family court magistrate, county courthouse." Dr. Patel's head snapped up. "You're a magistrate?" "Yes. And your uncle assaulted you over a family estate matter. He wants to take over as executor. I was legally appointed by the probate court. When I refused to step down, he did this." "Does he know you're a magistrate?" "No. My family thinks I'm an administrative clerk. I never corrected them." Dr. Patel nodded slowly. "Assault on a judicial officer gets reported automatically. Your entire ethics committee will see this." "I know." The orthopedic surgeon reviewed the X-rays. "I can repair this. Surgery tomorrow. Pins and possibly a plate. 8 to 10 weeks in a cast. Then months of physical therapy." They admitted me. My phone had 47 messages. Judge Morrison had sent 3 urgent texts. I called her. "The ethics board received your assault report," she said. "Are you all right?" "Shattered wrist. Surgery tomorrow. 6 weeks minimum off work." "Who did this?" "My uncle. He wanted me to resign as executor. When I refused, he broke my wrist." Silence. "He doesn't know you're a magistrate." "No one in my family does. They're about to find out. This is assault on a judicial officer. The prosecutor is filing felony charges with enhancements. The board is also checking if there are conflicts with you handling the estate. Probably fine, but we need documentation." "I have everything. Mom appointed me 5 years ago." "Send copies." The board is also issuing a statement. "We're making an example of this. The surgery took 4 hours. When I woke, my arm was in a cast from knuckles to elbow." Frank was arrested that afternoon. He tried claiming self-defense. Officer Martinez told me. All witnesses contradicted him. He's charged with assault on a judicial officer. Bail is $75,000. Did you tell him I'm a magistrate? The prosecutor did at arraignment. His lawyer nearly collapsed. The ethics board met 2 days later. You're cleared to continue as executor. Judge Morrison told me. No conflict. We're barring your uncle from any estate involvement and filing a formal complaint for interfering with judicial duties. Jennifer called that evening. I'm sorry. I should have helped. Yes, you should have. He's my dad. He broke my wrist and threatened to break the other. You watched. Is there anything I can do? Testify at trial. Tell the truth. Silence. He says you're ruining the family. He assaulted a judicial officer. The system is responding appropriately. If he'd done this to any other magistrate, the result would be identical. But your family. That makes it worse. He should have known better. The preliminary hearing was 3 weeks later. Frank's attorney tried arguing family dispute. The prosecutor presented X-rays showing my shattered wrist on screen. This wasn't a dispute. This was premeditated violence to intimidate a judicial officer. The defendant positioned the victim's hand and deliberately slammed the door. She required surgery and faces months of recovery. Judge Berkowitz reviewed everything. Mr. Patterson, you deliberately injured a family court magistrate to force her resignation from a lawful appointment. The evidence is overwhelming. Frank stood. I should have been appointed. I'm the oldest. The probate court made its decision. You had legal channels to object. You chose violence instead. He bound Frank over for trial. The trial was 8 weeks later. My cast was off, replaced by a brace. My wrist hurt constantly. Physical therapy helped, but I'd never regained full mobility. The jury saw the X-rays. The photographs, heard all 7 witnesses. Jennifer testified, describing what her father did. Guilty after 90 minutes. Frank was sentenced to 3 years. No parole for 18 months. Permanently barred from fiduciary roles. Ordered to pay medical expenses. Required to complete anger management. Frank looked at me once in the courtroom. I looked back calmly. I'd spent months learning to write left-handed, retraining my right hand through constant pain. Frank had gambled he could intimidate a clerk into giving up her position. He'd been wrong on every count. My mother's estate was settled 4 months later. I completed every duty. Distributions went exactly as Mom specified. Frank's portion went into a trust he couldn't access until after prison. And 2 years of law-abiding behavior. Mom had included that provision. She'd known exactly who her brother was. I still work as a magistrate. My wrist aches in the rain. I'll never have my old grip strength. But I can write, type, sign orders. That's enough. My family knows what I do now. Most apologized for not helping. Some didn't. I learned to tell the difference between people paralyzed by shock and people who chose inaction because it was easier. Frank gets out next year. We won't speak. The restraining order ensures that. But sometimes I think about that parking lot moment. My hand trapped, bones breaking, relatives turning away. I remember choosing not to step down, not to be intimidated, not to abandon the responsibility Mom trusted me with. Some people see a broken wrist as a reason to quit. I saw it as evidence of exactly why Mom chose me instead of Frank. She knew I'd finish what I started, no matter the cost, and I did.